The winter rain hits harder in Vancouver. It doesn't slide off you, it soaks deep. That morning, shivering outside a window streaked with condensation, I pressed my forehead to the glass and tried to count the breaths it took me not to walk away. Inside, the studio buzzed, fluorescent light pressed down like a hand. I was 23, shaking in a threadbare chef's jacket, the only splash of white among an ocean of tailored black food critics, local restaurateurs, and as always my sister Clara. She smiled at me, lips thin and familiar, and I forced myself forward when the call came. The dish trembled slightly in my hands, a bowl of duck confit with jasmine rice, Szechuan chrysanthemum, ginger foam flanking grilled shiso leaves. It smelled like my grandmother's faded kitchen and downtown street markets. I'd chosen every element to say I belong. As the judges leaned forward, forks held just so, I tried not to imagine my father's voice. "No one wants a plate of muddy confusion, Ethan." Laura Massett, head of the table, took the first bite. She chewed, brow furrowed. I thought of my prep 2 hours earlier, slicing duck thighs in the kitchenette while my hands shook so badly I nearly shaved off a fingernail. The final forkful went down and they set their cutlery aside in tandem, an unspoken signal. "I find the flavors jarring," Laura said, swirling water in her glass. "Hard to place," offered an elegant man with grey temples, his accent clipped as his suit. "There's no through line. What's your theme, Ethan?" I stood there, my heart a rabbit. I wanted to explain, to talk about Chinese markets, the warmth of sesame oil, the sharp lift of ginger from my mother's stew, but words jammed behind my teeth. Clara coughed, a sharp, deliberate sound. Someone snickered. "I told you he'd go fusion. He's always got some phase, like when he wore Dad's old apron for a week straight and tried to make egg tarts in the toaster oven," she said, voice bright and brittle. Maury laughter. Laura put on her teacher's smile. "Creativity is risky, but sometimes restraint, Ethan, is as important as imagination. Don't let nostalgia cloud your judgment." Her words landed soft but precise, each syllable pressing an ache into my chest. They dismissed me before I could plead my case. When it was over, I gathered my pans in the echoing silence of the storeroom. Outside, Clara found me crouched by the mop sink, fighting the sting behind my eyelids. "You're chasing a mirage." "Come work for Dad," she said, soft like she was offering me a hand instead of a verdict. "You gave it your shot, but someone has to grow up." I left into the rain, my jacket clinging cold to my skin. The walk home felt endless. I counted the squares of sidewalk, letting each step drain me of pride. Upstairs in my little room off Commercial Drive, the smell of oil and ginger lingered in my bag. I wanted to believe I could still make something out of them. 3 years slipped like oil down a pan. I worked the line at Tokyo Joe's, flipping teriyaki and refilling bins of rice. I went home to the same stale apartment, the neighbor's dog barking at odd hours, the stove uneven even after I wedged it with a pack of old comic books. The phone calls home got shorter. Dad would say, "There's always a spot for you here," and Clara would ask, "Saved anything yet?" I missed my mother's hum in the kitchen, the roll of the wok and the sizzle that made you feel full before you tasted a thing. I missed the way the block smelled at dawn, bakery flour and rain and the hint of car exhaust, before the world woke up. When Tokyo Joe's closed, I floated day gigs at small cafes, catering shifts that paid in tips and leftover pastries. Sometimes, walking down Main, I'd stare into restaurants, imagining building my own, a place that didn't have to choose between ginger and balsamic, where a plate could hold contradictions. Nights I scrawled recipe ideas in a battered notebook, pages stained with soy sauce and sweat. I tried to fill the blanks. What happens when you're not good enough but you can't bear to stop? That winter, a sous chef named Kevin at Caprice Bistro passed my name to a friend, a new spot looking for something different. They didn't have money. They had a lease, 3 mismatched tables, and the idea that maybe if you fried eggplant crisp enough, no one would notice the walls. I spent my last 300 buying second-hand pans and a good wok. We called the place Small Joys. We had a menu of 11 dishes, none fully Chinese or Canadian. Duck confit tucked beside sticky rice and grilled mustard greens. Oxtail bow drizzled with rosemary oil. I worked every shift, cooking, cleaning, hanging posters myself on telephone poles. The critics didn't show. The only review was 1 star from an ex-roommate who never paid rent. Night after night, I plated food for 5, sometimes 10 strangers. The first tips went to light bulbs and payroll. Some nights, rainwater crept in under the door, pooling by the refrigerator, threatening to short it out for good. Yet one night, a teenage girl ate my lapchung risotto and started to cry. "Tastes like my aunt's dumplings, but different," she whispered. Her dad paid with coins, left me a napkin scribbled with "thank you." Those moments threaded me together. I learned to let go of the fantasy of roaring success. The struggle became the shape of my life. Word seeped out slow as honey. A blogger came, eager for a free meal, and wrote like being fed in your weirdest, warmest dreams. The next week, a small feature in the Georgia Strait lifted us, enough to fill 10 tables for a week. My hands bled from mandolin cuts and I barely slept, shifting between prep and quick naps in the storeroom. People started coming back, not to be impressed but to see what would happen next. Sometimes the flavors didn't quite land, jasmine too strong, broth too fatty, but each time I changed something, learned patience. With every mistake I rebuilt. 2 years in, Small Joys was packed, a chorus of conversation every night. I hired 2 cooks. The same critics started booking tables months out. I still woke with a pang sometimes, the memory of that studio and Laura's even tone. Sometimes restraint is as important as imagination. But I found my own restraint, my own kind of selection that made the menu what it was. Dishes crafted with memory and intent, knotted into something that never tried to hide its contradictions. Years shifted, seasons rolled through. The Greater Vancouver Culinary Council announced its annual award finalists. A friend texted, "You're in, maybe more," and then a letter, formal and heavy, with an invitation to present a signature dish at the annual gala studio format, but this time at the Glass House downtown, with a skylight that battered the room in blue light. I walked there early on the day, knife roll under my arm, rain tapping rhythms on the glass overhead. My name was scrawled on the board beside 5 best restaurants, people I'd admired from afar. I closed my eyes and counted 4 breaths. When my slot came, I set down a plate, wild mushroom-stuffed bao on roasted kohlrabi, sweet soy-lacquered duck breast, pickled chrysanthemum and shiso micro cilantro. It wasn't the same dish, but the heart pulsed through. I didn't look for approval, I plated for myself. I glanced up, and there Clara at the end of a long table beside our father, their expressions unreadable. Laura Massett too, older, still precise. The room settled as I introduced the dish. This is a memory, not a recreation but a reconstruction. All the pieces that made me made this. They tasted, the knives made quick, silent work of the duck. I watched their faces, not looking for the twist of the mouth but the softening behind the eyes. Laura put down her fork. She looked me head on, not as a student but as a peer. "There's cohesion here," she said. A voice, she paused, words careful and heavy. "Tell us about it." I took a breath, full and clean. When I was a kid, my grandmother cooked with what she had. She made do, duck bones for broth, wild greens from the alleys. I wanted to hold on to that but not hide where I'm from. Vancouver is filled with contradiction, rain and sun in the same hour, languages knotted together. I wanted the plate to taste like that. Maybe that's not restraint. Maybe that's honesty. Silence wrapped the table, then applause, real and ringing. I saw my father blink, his jaw quivering. Clara's eyes glistened. Later, as guests filed out, Clara found me, her hug tight and wordless. My father lingered, clearing his throat. "You built something," he murmured, not quite meeting my eye. "I tried," I said. He smiled, his pride quiet, and handed me a folded cloth, his old kitchen towel worn to threads and laundered thin. "Maybe you show me your kitchens." The next night I returned to Small Joys, breathless from the weight of recognition, and set 3 plates at the corner table. My father watched me move, hands sure and quick, and when he spoke it was only to ask, "What's next?" I watched Clara laugh with our sous chef at the pass, her skepticism chipped away. I let the hum of my tiny restaurant fill me, all sharp edges melted. For a moment, every small struggle, each mocking word, every long night in an empty apartment, folded together into something whole. I was not their ridiculous dreamer. I was home, finally, rebuilt from hunger and hope.